You feel this really exhilarating rage rise up in you that, yeah, why have we been tolerating this? How dare they? Why is this how the system works? Why is this how human beings behave? Book Shook is literally the book that shook you, something that changed your whole life, your worldview. And for me, that book was Hunger by Roxane Gay. It's a book about this unbelievably traumatic event that happens to her when she's 12 years old. She is gang raped by a boy that she knows and his friends. And the book goes on to tell us how that event shaped not just Roxane's life and her emotions, but also her body, the impact that it had on her relationship with food and herself. It then also goes on to document how the world has continued to treat her. When I was little, I was a victim of sexual violence, and then I was again as an adult, and that has not only impacted my own personal behavior and the way I feel and how unsafe I feel a lot of the time, but it also has massively impacted the way that I treat my body. In fact, all trauma has had an impact on how I've treated my body, and this is something that people don't link enough to, is that sometimes we use food as a comfort. I think the reason this book is so important is because nobody writes like this. What she's writing about is so sensitive. Reading it hurt, but it also helped heal me because it's the first time I've ever felt less alone in my experience. She's talking about all of the things that we are too embarrassed or awkward to really dig into in the mainstream. And until we do, people aren't going to heal. And she talks about sexual violence, and she talks about fat phobia and her own body in such a frank and earnest way. The first thing I felt when I read this book was, fuck, I wish I'd read this when I was so much younger. I wish she'd written this 20 years ago so I could have read it and been prepared for the world and also have understood myself. It would have completely changed my life. When you read it, it is upsetting and it is a little bit triggering at times, but mostly you just feel like punching the air because she's fighting back. She writes about things that we don't hear about enough when we hear about the experience of being a bigger person in this world. We don't know about what it's like to travel, what it's like to be in a supermarket and have strangers walk up to you and take items of food out of your cart and then criticize you for having even thought that you could buy that food. People who know nothing about you, who know nothing about what you've gone through, they have no business getting involved in your health or your decisions around food, and don't think about how humiliating that is, how rude it is, what an invasion of someone's privacy and humanity that is. You know, with Roxane in particular, her size is directly related to her sexual trauma. She ate as a way to not only comfort herself, but also to build a barrier around herself because she thought if she was small, that she would be vulnerable to another assault, just like the one she experienced at 12. I've definitely taken my emotions out on my body in my life. And no one told me when I was younger that that was normal and that's okay. That's your way of surviving, and whatever you have to do just to survive, especially through something traumatic, is okay. And that is such an overwhelming message of this book. She has this great passage. It's a shame that the measure is what is not so bad instead of what is thriving and good. I look at some of my worst relationships and think, at least they didn't hit me. I work from a place of gratitude for the bare minimum. And that just hurts to read because I think that is so true of women, of LGBTQ people, of people of different races. We think about the absolute horror stories as the bar. That shouldn't be the bar. We are entitled to the same things as those who are more privileged than us. She calls out an amazing injustice, not only in our society, but in how we are trained to feel. It's like we're indoctrinated to feel grateful for morsels. And I think that's probably the conversation of the year. There is a rising up of different marginalized groups who are tired of being given scraps. It's one of those books that I will go back to again and again. It's such a beautiful and important book. All I would want to say to Roxane is thank you for telling us the truth. And thank you for being so generous with something so traumatic and for making so many people feel less alone and less gaslit about their experiences. Writers like you change people's lives, you save people's lives, and I think this is one of the greatest books in the history of the world.
Hi y'all, thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe here, or here, or here, like somewhere in this area. Anywhere, over there.